Hi, I'm Brian Noble from FPIW,
And I'm Brad Payne with FPIW Action.
and we're both the CEO and president. I forgot to say that, but this is our disclaimer for you. Nothing on this recording is considered an endorsement of the candidate, nor the candidate's endorsement of FPIW and FPIW Action. It's simply a public service to meet and greet the candidates. This will be recorded and placed on several platforms.
All right, Damon, I get the first question. It's pretty easy. Nothing too hard, but kind of a three-parter. One is like for you just to tell our listeners your name and what position you're running for. And then if you give us a little background on yourself and a little bit about your family, if you wish to.
Yeah, great. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, my name is Damon Townsend. I'm running to be your next Secretary of State for the state of Washington. A little bit about my background. I have a kind of an interesting background. I actually first went to college to be a history teacher. I wanted to teach high school, wound up changing gears, and I went to work in the telecommunications industry where I was a data systems technician and an operations manager for what was CenturyLink, then Lumen, and then a couple other changes. As part of that, I wanted to expand, and I actually went back to school and got my degree in accounting and got an MBA. And my company moved me over to Eastern Washington, which I enjoyed, but my family wanted to come back, and there was an opportunity at Pierce County for an election supervisor. And so I said, well, I've always been interested in elections, so I moved back home to the Gig Harbor, Tacoma area and went to work for Pierce County as their election supervisor, where I updated our tabulation system. I won national awards for ballot accountability. I helped the Secretary of State's office develop the new voter registration system. And then I left to do consulting work. I've done consulting work for different counties. I've actually acted as an acting manager for a couple of counties who lost their supervisors and managers during the 2020 presidential cycle. It's a pretty stressful time for elections administrators. And I was glad I was available to pinch hit for them. And then the Secretary of State actually asked me to come to work for them on a temporary basis to train the administrators in the new registration system. So I've been to a lot of the counties helping them learn how to use the system. So I got an extensive background in elections, and I think that's important for this office. And so that's why I'm participating in this election cycle. I actually wasn't going to file. I actually filed on the last day of filing week because I wasn't happy with the current crop of candidates. So I kind of jumped in late. So, but that's why I did.
Okay. Well, you kind of went over your motive already, which is great. Anything else you want to add to the fact of why you're running for office?
Yeah, really the trigger, what made me really want to run is it always got under my skin when the presidential primary comes around and you actually have to declare a party checkbox in order to participate in that election. We got so many calls from voters who are upset about that. I personally have a perfect voting record except for in presidential primaries, and I take an opportunity to tear that ballot up and share with everybody that it's not really an election. What it is, it's a polling as a state-sponsored polling instrument for the two political parties, and I don't really care for it. I don't. That's one of the reasons I really ran was because I think that we need to either have an unaffiliated option on there, or maybe we should just have the two parties actually pay for their part of the presidential primary because I don't like the taxpayers getting stuck with the bill for two private entities polling research. So that was really what the trigger was to get me in the race.
Very good. All right, I get another question, Damon. One is maybe naming one or two other issues other than the ones you've already touched upon that are important to you. And then if you were elected to office, what do you hope to accomplish during your time there?
Yeah, it's really important to me that our elections are administered by people who are perceived as impartial, kind of like judges. It's really important. One of my lines is, when you have a referee on the field, they wear the white and black striped jersey and not the jersey of one of the two teams in the game. So that's why I'm running as a no labels candidate. We almost had 2 years ago the first independent Secretary of State elected in the state of Washington, and so I was kind of inspired. I actually used to work for her. She was my auditor when I was the election supervisor in Pierce County. We don't agree on everything, but I do agree that whoever's administering elections needs to not be outwardly part of one of those two parties. So one of the things I would aim to do, and the previous Secretary of State Kim Wyman introduced legislation to make the Secretary of State a nonpartisan position similar to Superintendent of Public Instruction, because it is one of those offices that really shouldn't be partisan. I strongly support our partisan legislature because you really need to know the people who are making laws, what their stance is on things, but you want to know that the professional executive level offices are professionals. And that's one of the reasons why it's important to me. I'm a certified elections administrator. I like to make that a requirement. Our current Secretary of State's been in office for 3 years and hasn't even bothered to become an elections administrator. I think that's a lacking on his part. The other thing I'd like to increase is, voter integrity. You know, a lot of people are concerned about our elections process and our voter registration process. And one of the simple changes is I want our voter rolls to be cleaned up. We have some, I like to call them zombie laws on the books from when we used to have registration cutoffs and things like that to ensure that we didn't disenfranchise anybody because we had a 30-day sign-up requirement. But now that we have all the way to same-day registration and transfers, there's no reason for some of those limitations on cleaning up the voter rolls that were in place before. And so as an inside person who knows the laws kind of internally as an administrator, I know the small and ones to change, the ones I can get through the legislature, and I know the whacks that I can change as a secretary to really increase that voter registration cleanup. So that's some of my main goals.
All right. And our fourth and final question, are there any issues or policies that FPIW Action or FPIW are working on that you'd like to discuss or comment? We provided those before the show today.
Yeah, I kind of highlighted three of them. I really like individual freedom's important to me as a citizen of the United States and a citizen of the state of Washington. It's important that we understand that the government can limit our rights, but they're not the source of our rights. And it's important that people express their freedom to do that. That ties back to in Washington, we've never had to register for a party. So I don't like having to check a checkbox. I think that's a limitation on your individual freedom to vote for whomever you choose for. Again, you guys are focused on election integrity. That's important to me. You know, as an elections administrator, I've caught double voters. I've sent them to the prosecuting attorney before. We caught 8 people in Pierce County in 2016 who voted both in Pierce County and in other states. And it may be a small number, but I'm proud that we caught those people and we sent those on to the prosecutor as they should be. And then you guys also focusing on education, because one of the things as election supervisor and as a communicator, I think it's really important that we keep our kids involved civically. We need to make sure that they participate in the process. I always hated going to high schools and I would give them talks about voting. I'd say, we have an election coming up. Who's on the ballot? And they'd say, oh, the president. I go, who cares? It's a little bit more important to you, and you should think about this, is you're also voting for a fire commissioner. You're voting for a sewer commissioner. And when your house burns down or your septic or your sewer backs up, you're going to be sad that you didn't pay attention to those races down ballot, which are really important. And so just educating the youth and making sure that they're involved is something that's very important to me as well.
Excellent.
Great. All right. Well, Damon, thank you so much. We appreciate your thoughtful answers to these questions, and we appreciate your time and taking the time to be with us today. And we wish you luck in the next 2 weeks as you head towards the primary, and best of wishes to you.
Yeah, you betcha. And thank you for the work you do there. And you guys have a great day.
All right. Well, I'm Brad Payne with FPIW Action.
And I'm Brian Noble with FPIW. Again, nothing in this video should be construed as an endorsement of the candidate, nor the candidate's endorsement of FPIW or FPIW Action. Like we like to say around here, love your neighbor by faithfully stewarding the public square. And if you're one of our defenders, go and defend and advance biblical values in the public square. God bless.